homomorphisms. That is the uh, title of the talk. Yesterday, Jayantan introduced the concept of a topological space as well as that of a continuous function between them. Suppose let x t1 and y t2 be topological spaces, a function from x to y. Then f is continuous if f inverse of u is an element of t1 for every u element of t1. In other words, f is continuous if the inverse image of every open subset of u, subset u of y, is an open subset of x. You can also define continuity of a function at a point first, and then define that a function is continuous if it is continuous at each of the points of the domain. Let me take a very small example of a topological space. Let X be a set which contains only two elements, A and B, and let T be a topology on it consisting of the empty set, the full set capital X, and also the singleton A. This is a topology on T, contains X, and also closed under arbitrary unions and finite intersections. And X together with this T, that is the ordered pair XT, is called a topological space, and that is called the Sierpinski space. Sierpinski was a great topologist. This is a very elementary example given usually in all topology courses. And there is one point to be remembered, that this is not a metrizable topological space. That is, there exists no metric on X which gives this topology. Because if this topology is obtained from a metric, and if singleton A is open, then there should exist some open bar of small a contained in singleton A. That is, there exists some open bar of small a which doesn't contain B. If that is the case, then an open bar of B should exist which doesn't contain A, and that should be open, and that is not the case here. Therefore, this space is not metrizable, or it is not even pseudo-metrizable. But still, this is a topological space. So in this sense, topological spaces are more in number compared with the metrizable spaces. Now, in this space, singleton A is open, whereas singleton B is not open. Now, suppose I define topology in another way. Say T1 is equal to the set containing empty set, capital X, as well as singleton B. This is also a topology on X. T1 is also a topology on X. Now, compare the topological spaces XT and XT1. They are structurally similar. What is the difference between these two spaces, XT and XT1? The base set X is the same, and even in the topology there is not much difference. It contains the empty set, the whole set X, as well as one singleton. The only difference is that in T, singleton A is open and singleton B is not open, whereas in T1, singleton B is open, whereas singleton A is not open. So they are essentially they say, or in other words, they are structurally similar. Suppose you rename A and B, that is, change the name of A to B and name of B to A, you can get xt1 out of x. In this sense, we can say that xt and xt1 are structurally similar. Or let me take it another way. You take a set capital Y consisting of 2 points, small x and small y. That is again a 2-point set. Now, define the topology as follows. T2 is equal to a set containing empty set, the whole set Y, and singleton X. That is also a topology. T2 is also a topology on Y because it contains empty set, the whole set Y, and it is closed under arbitrary unions and finite intersections. Now, compare XT and YT2. We can see that XT and YT2 are structurally similar. Both X and Y are two sets having the same number of elements, 2. Only the difference is that in one the elements are named A and B, whereas in the other the elements are named X and Y. The topology is also similar. Both contains the empty set, the whole set, as well as one single set, and not the other. So here, if you rename A as Y and B as A as X and B as Y, then you can see that the space XT is nothing but the space YT. The only difference is that the elements are named differently, and names doesn't matter. So in this sense, XT and YT2 are also structurally similar. So how can we define this structural similarity of topological spaces? Let me take an analogy from group theory. I think people are more familiar with the group theory. And in group theory, there is this concept of group isomorphism. What is a group homomorphism? A group homomorphism is a function from one group to the other, preserving the binary operation. That is, f of A star B is equal to f of A star f of B. In this sense, that is a function from one group to the other, which preserves the binary operation. Now, what is a group isomorphism? A group isomorphism is a bijective group homomorphism. A bijective group homomorphism is called a group isomorphism. Now, if you take a bijective group homomorphism, since it is bijective, it will have a set-theoretic inverse function, and that inverse function will also be a homomorphism automatically. So, an isomorphism is a homomorphism having the inverse of that function also as a homomorphism. When is a function invertible? A function is invertible if and only if it is bijective. So, in a similar way, we can define an isomorphism of topological spaces as follows. They are called homomorphism. They are defined as bicontinuous bijection. That is, a continuous bijection from a topological space to another topological space is a homomorphism if the inverse is also continuous. If you take a continuous bijection, there is a bijection, therefore inverse of that function exists. That inverse should, if that inverse is also continuous, then we can say that it is a homomorphism. Here, not that inverse of every, if you take an arbitrary continuous bijection, the inverse may not be continuous. That is why we are specifying that the inverse should also be continuous. This is very analogous to the definition of homomorphisms, of group isomorphisms, because a group homomorphism is a group isomorphism if and only if there exists a homomorphism G from Y to X such that F composition G is identity on Y and G composition F is identity on X. Or in other words, the inverse is also a homomorphism. Similar way, a continuous function from X to Y is a homeomorphism if and only if there exists a continuous function G from Y to X such that G composition F is identity on Y and F composition G is identity on X. So there is a continuous function having a continuous inverse. Now, we should note that a continuous bijection need not be a homeomorphism. Here's a simple example. Let X be the real line with the usual topology. What is meant by the usual topology? In the real line, we can take the usual metric, that is the distance between 2 points X and Y. dxy is defined as modulus of X minus Y. That metric is called the usual metric on the real line. And the open sets of that metric space form is a topology, and that topology is called the usual topology. Unless otherwise specified, we take this topology on the real line. So again, so that is X. So X is the real line with the usual topology. Now let Y be the set of all real numbers, again the same set, but we are changing the topology. The topology is the indiscrete topology. What is meant by the indiscrete topology? Jayantan had mentioned that is a topology consisting of only two open sets, that is the empty set and the whole set only. That the whole real line is open subset of real line, and the empty set is also an open subset of the real line, and these are the only open subsets of the real line. That topology is called the indiscrete topology. So if you give that topology on the real line, real numbers, set of all real numbers, then that is denoted by capital Y. Now from X to Y, since X and Y are set theoretically the same, we can consider the identity function from X to Y. And that identity function is clearly a bijection and is also continuous. Why continuous? Because in the codomain Y, there are only two open sets, Y and the empty set. The preimage of Y is X, open. Preimage of empty set is empty set, open. So there is a continuous bijection. But it's not a homeomorphism. In fact, we can see that the identity map is a homeomorphism if and only if the topologies coincide. Now, if you want a more complicated example, but more familiar, more real example, the standard example is an interval and a circle. Consider the interval 0 to pi, closed at 0, open at 2 pi. That is the set of all real numbers X such that 0 is less than or equal to X, strictly less than 2 pi. And you take the circle, the unit circle, that is S1, that is the set of all ordered pairs XY in R2, such that X square plus Y square is equal to 1. That is the unit circle. And the unit circle is a subset of the of R2. So in R2, we have the usual topology, that is the topology induced from the usual metric. That is, if you take 2 points X1, Y1 and X2, Y2, the distance between them is defined as square root of the square of X1 minus X2 plus the square of Y1 minus Y. So that is the usual metric in R2. So the in S1 also we can give the you will get a the topology induced by the usual metric or induced as a subspace of R. Now you can define a continuous function phi from 0 to pi to S1 as follows. Phi of theta is defined as cos theta comma sin theta. The ordered pair cos theta sin theta, or in other words, e to the power of I pi. E to the power of I pi is cos theta sin. This map is 1, 1 and on 2, and is also continuous because its first component cos theta and the second component sin theta are individually continuous. Therefore, it is a continuous function. So there is a 1, 1 on 2 function bijection, which is also continuous, but this is the inverse is not continuous. Why the inverse is not continuous? The inverse is the phi inverse from S1 to the 0 to pi, closed at 0, open at 2 pi. If you take that function will not be continuous, because if you take a small open interval 0 to say pi, closed at 0, open at pi, the preimage of that will be a subset of S1 which is not open. So this is not having a continuous inverse. So that is a 1, 1 on 2 continuous function, but the inverse is not continuous. In fact, you can see that there exists no homeomorphism between these two spaces. We can later see that these two spaces are not homeomorphic. So no homeomorphism exists. Not only that phi is not a homeomorphism, but there exists no homeomorphism between these two. So coming back to the Sierpinski space, X is equal to AB and T is equal to the set containing empty set, all set, and singleton A. XT is called the Sierpinski space, and T1 is defined as empty set capital X and singleton B, then XT and XT1 are homomorphic. So earlier we observed that they are structurally similar, but with the present terminology, they are homomorphic. So if there is a homomorphism from this space to that space, we say that the spaces are homomorphic. Here, the homomorphism is A going to B and B going to A. Similarly, if you take Y is equal to single set containing Y and X and Y, and T2 is equal to a set containing empty set, the whole set, and singleton Y, then we can find a homomorphism between XT and YT2. The function which takes A to X and B to Y, that will be a homomorphism. Therefore, these two spaces are homomorphic. Two spaces are homomorphic means there is a homomorphism between them. A 1, 1 on 2 continuous map with a continuous inverse. Now let us take the homomorphisms of the real line. A real line means a real line with the usual topology. Now, f of x is equal to minus x for all x. This is a function from the real line to the real line, that is 1, 1 on 2. It is continuous. Can easily. And what is the inverse of this function? The inverse of this function is again f of x is equal to negative of x. That is also continuous. Therefore, this is a homomorphism. This is the inversion. And another homomorphism is given by f of x is equal to x plus a. That is for all x. That means we are translating by a small amount a. A is some real number. This is a 1, 1 on 2 function, which is also continuous, and the inverse will be f of x will be f of x is equal to x minus a. That is also continuous. Therefore, this is a homomorphism. Now, if a is any non-zero real number, we can define f of x is equal to ax as a function from real line to real line, and then also a is f is 1, 1 on 2 continuous, and the inverse will be the function f of x is equal to 1 by a into x. That is also continuous. Therefore, this is a homomorphism. of course, A should be non-zero. If A is equal to 0, this function will be a constant function to 0, and that will not be 1 or on 2. Therefore, that will not be a homeomorphism. Then there arises the question: what are all the homeomorphisms of the real line? Of course, you can also find several other homeomorphisms of the real line. And how to determine all of them. I am not answering that question now. I am leaving that as an exercise to you. The homeomorphisms of the real line are precisely the strictly increasing continuous functions and the strictly decreasing continuous. Strictly increasing continuous function means a function with the property that whenever A is less than B, f of A is less than f of B. Strictly decreasing continuous functions are continuous functions, the property that whenever A is less than B, f of A is greater than f. So both the strictly increasing continuous functions as well as set of all strictly decreasing continuous functions together form the collection of all homeomorphisms of the. Now, take a function f from real line to the open interval -1, 1. That is the set of all real numbers between strictly between -1 and 1, excluding them. That is the set of all real numbers x such that -1 is less than x less than 1. Now define the function f of x as f of x is equal to x divided by 1 plus mod x for all. This is a 1, 1 on 2 function from the real line to open interval -1, 1. It is also continuous. The inverse of this function is from g from -1, 1 to real line defined by g of x is equal to x by 1 minus modulus of x for all x in -1, 1. That is also a continuous function. Why continuous? Why f of x and g of x are continuous? The numerator is x, that is identity function. F of x is equal to x is the identity function that is continuous, and x going to modulus of x is also a continuous function. We know 1 plus mod x is also a continuous function. 1 minus mod x is a continuous function, and 1 plus mod x in the first case for all real x, 1 plus mod x is never 0. Therefore, x by 1 plus mod x is a continuous function. For all points in open interval -1, 1, 1 minus mod x is never 0. Therefore, x by 1 minus mod x is again a continuous. Since both f and g are continuous and f is bijection, we can see that f is a homeomorphism from real line to open interval -1, 1. Therefore, real line is homeomorphic to -1, 1. Now you take any open interval a b where a is less than b. Such open intervals are usually called non-degenerate or non-trivial open intervals. Now, if you take f of x is equal to b minus a into x, there is we are multiplying x by b minus a. B minus a is a positive real number. That is a 1, 1 on 2 continuous map with a continuous inverse. Therefore, that is a homeomorphism from open interval 0, 1 to 0 b minus a. F of x is equal to x plus a for all x. That is translation by a. Is a homeomorphism from open interval 0 b minus a to a. Now combining these two continuous functions, taking the composition, we can take a function from open interval 0, 1 to ab as follows. F of x is equal to b minus a into x plus b for all x in open interval 0, 1. And that is homeomorphism. Composition of homeomorphisms again composition homeomorphisms because composition of bijections is again bijection and composition of continuous functions is a continuous function. Thus, we will get a homeomorphism from open interval 0, 1, 2, open interval AB for any open interval AB where A is less than A, B real numbers. Thus, as a consequence, we can see that any two non-degenerate open intervals are homomorphic. And real line is also homomorphic with all these. In particular, real line is homomorphic with open interval 0, 1, and of course, open interval -1, 1. Any two non-degenerate open intervals are homomorphic. In a similar way, we can prove that any two non-degenerate closed intervals are homomorphic. This is to be noted that identity is always a homomorphism. If you take a topological space xt and if you take the identity function from xt to xt, there is a homomorphism. Because it's 1, 1 on 2 and it is continuous trivially. Inverse is the same thing, continuous. So identity function is always a homomorphism. Composition of homomorphisms of homomorphism, as I mentioned earlier. And inverse of a homomorphism is also a homomorphism, because inverse of a bijection is again bijection. And if F is a homomorphism, then F inverse is also continuous, and the inverse of F inverse is F, that is also continuous. Therefore, F inverse is also a homomorphism. Now, if you take a topological space and take the collection of all homomorphisms of the space to itself, then that contains the identity function. So that is a non-empty collection. And the composition of functions is a binary operation on that, and that is associative. There is identity, and there is a inverse for any homomorphism. Therefore, that will form a group, and that is called the group of homomorphisms of a topological space. Now, for metrics also, for metric spaces also, we can define a similar concept. That is called isometry. So, what is an isometry? Isometry is a bijection preserving distance. That is formally an isometry F is a bijective function from a metric space xd to a metric space y d star, such that dxy is equal to d star xy, d star f of x, f of y. That's a typing mistake. What I meant, what I intended was d of xy is equal to d star of fx, comma fy for all x. That is, it is a bijection with the property that the distance between any two points is the same as the distance between the corresponding images. That is, they are bijections which preserve the distance. You can see that all isometries are homomorphisms. But a homomorphism may not be an isometry. Why isometries are homomorphisms? Because the topological structure, that is the collection of open sets, is defined using the metric. So if the metric is preserved, then automatically open sets are preserved this way and that way. Therefore, isometries are all homomorphisms. But a homomorphism preserve only the collection of open sets, but they may not preserve the metrics. Therefore, a homomorphism may not be an isometry in the case of a metric space. For example, from real line to real line, f of x is equal to 2x for all x is a homomorphism of the real line, but it is not an isometry because the distance between 0 and 1 is equal to 1, whereas the distance between their images 0 and 2 under this function is equal to 2 and not equal to 1. Therefore, it is not an isometry, even though it is a 1, 1 and on 2. There is a bijection and it is continuous. What is meant by a topological property? Formally, a topological property is a property of a topological space which are preserved by homomorphisms. That is, if P is a property of a topological space, if X is a topological space having the property P, and if X and Y are homomorphic, then Y should also have the property. Such properties are called topological properties. For example, cardinality is a topological property. Because if X and Y are two topological spaces and if there is a homomorphism between them, that homomorphism is a bijection between them. And if two spaces, if between two sets there is a bijection, both of them will be having the same cardinality. For example, the space of all rational numbers with the usual topology and the space of all real numbers with the usual topology, these two spaces are not homomorphic because one is countable whereas the other is uncountable. Therefore, they have different cardinalities. Therefore, they are not homomorphic. Homomorphic topological spaces will always have the same cardinality. For example, if you take a 2-point topological space like a Sierpinski space, and any space homomorphic to that will also contain only 2 points. If you take a finite topological space containing only n elements, that finite and if it is homomorphic to a topological space, that topological space will also have the same number of elements. And countable topological spaces will be homomorphic only to countable topological spaces, and uncountable topological spaces will be homomorphic only to uncountable topological. Whereas completeness and boundedness are not topological space properties. Because earlier we had observed that if we had observed that real line and open interval 0, 1 are homomorphic. Now, real line, if you take it with the usual metric, it is a complete metric. Whereas open interval 0, 1 with the usual metric is not a complete metric. Because the Cauchy sequence 1 by 1, 1 by 2, 1 by 3, 1 by 4, etc. There is 1 by n. That Cauchy sequence in open interval 0, 1 does not converge. So, real line is a complete metric space, whereas open interval 0, 1 is not complete, but still they are homomorphic as topological space. So, completeness is not a topological property. That is not preserved by homomorphism. Similarly, boundedness is not a topological property because real line is unbounded, whereas open interval 0, 1 is bounded, but still they are homomorphic. So, boundedness is also not a topological property. They are clearly metric properties because these isometries preserve both completeness and boundedness. Felix Klein was a great German mathematician, lived from 1849 to 1925. He served in several universities, including the great University of Göttingen. In fact, he was appointed as a professor in the University of Erlangen. And on the appointment, he submitted a thesis called Erlangen Program in 1872. There is a very historic document in mathematics on the classification of geometry. According to him, a geometry is the study of those properties of a set that are invariant under the transformations of some transformation group bodies. You take a set. And what is meant by the transformation group? There is a group of some bijections of it. If S is a set, the collection of all bijections of S is called the symmetric group, and transformation group is a subgroup of that. So that is a group of transformations. That is a group of bijections of S. some of them. And any geometry is a study of those properties which are invariant under this the transformations in this particular group. This is the idea. Topology is geometry under this definition because for the any set S for any space, we are having the group of homeomorphisms, and we are interested in the properties of subsets which are invariant under homeomorphisms interpol. They are the topological properties. Erlangen program was also generalized by various mathematicians later. So topology is the study of those properties of point sets which are invariant under homeomorphisms. The original name for topology in olden times was analysis situs. So topology is a kind of geometry. Some people call topology rubber sheet geometry, in the sense that suppose some object is made of highly elastic rubber. You can stretch it or compress it or slightly deform it because that is very assumed to be very elastic. The shape will change, and such changes of shapes are usually homeomorphisms, and the topological properties are preserved under such transformation. In this sense, topology is usually called the rubber sheet geometry. Look at this. Here is a coffee cup or coffee mug, as we may call it. But gradually, if you decrease the depth of that and gradually make it a cylinder with a handle, and then if you again transform that, you'll get a torus like this. And you can deform that back to a coffee mug again. And this transformation, during this transformation, the topology's properties are preserved, or this is a one-one-onto map which preserves continuity both ways. That is, the function is there is bicontinuous bijection, as I mentioned earlier. Now, what is meant by continuity? By continuity, we mean that 2 points which are near in the beginning are again near at the end. That is, nearer points are mapped to nearer points, and the inverse is having that property, since that is only nearer points are mapped to nearer points. So such a kind of transformation is a homeomorphism, and this transformation is a homeomorphism. And usually there is a saying that topologists are people who cannot distinguish between a coffee cup and a donut. Donut is a bakery item which is just like a torus, and topologist is a person who cannot distinguish between. Now, I think you are familiar with these 5 regular polyhedra. Sometimes they are also called Platonic solids. Cube, that is familiar to you. we are having tetrahedron, we are having octahedron, icosahedron, and dodecahedron. So these 5 are the only regular polyhedra. So what are polyhedra? Polyhedra are surfaces made out of polygons. And here this is regular in the sense that all the polygonal areas used are having this are congruent, similar, and they are all attached in a nice fashion. Now, I think you are familiar with the concept of vertices, edges, and faces of these polyhedra. And if you tabulate the faces, vertices, and the edges for this polyhedron, you will get a table like this. And you can see that number of faces from plus number of vertices will be equal to number of edges plus 2, or V plus V minus E plus V minus E is equal to F. Sorry, that's a printing mistake. That is V minus E plus F is equal to 2. That's a printing mistake. That's given. V minus E plus F is equal to 2. This is called Euler formula for the vertices, faces, and the edges of a polyhedron. You can see that this result is verified for all regular polyhedra, but of course, all polyhedron need not be regular. Regular means all the faces are congruent. But here, look at the two polyhedron on the right. Their faces are not congruent. So there is an example of irregular polyhedron. But still, they are connected and convex. And so naturally, the same formula works for them also. But look at this polyhedron. This is not convex. It's connected, but this is not convex. Why? Because there is a hole. This is just like a torus. This is a polyhedron, just like similar to a torus, and it's having a hole inside. That is not convex. Actually, this polyhedron is homomorphic to a torus, whereas the other polyhedron we saw earlier were all homomorphic to the sphere, and that is why the Euler's formula was correct for them, but it is not correct for this polyhedron. Of course, you can have several peculiar types of polyhedron which are not convex. For example, this is not convex. This is a concave polyhedron, and with a lot of faces, vertices, and edges. The Euler number is defined as V minus E plus F. That is, if V is the number of vertices, E is the number of edges, and F is the number of faces, V minus E plus F is called the Euler number of a polyhedron. For the regular polyhedron, we have that Euler number is equal to 2. Whereas for this polyhedron, the Euler number will be equal to 0. So that depends on the geometric shape of the polyhedra. We can have that two polyhedra which are topologically equal, means which are homomorphic, will have the same Euler number. For example, if a polyhedron is homomorphic to the sphere, the Euler number V minus E plus F will be equal to 2. If it is homomorphic to a torus, then the Euler number will be equal to 0, etc. This remarkable result is the starting point of modern topology. There is another something interesting. To the left and the right are having we are having surface. So in the left we are having a torus. So there is a surface in R3, usually called the torus, just like our donut. Now on the right we are having a surface, and you may feel that it's very much different from this torus, but the interesting thing is that both are homomorphic. That is, you can find a bijection between these two surfaces. There is a 1,1,on2 function between these two surfaces, which is continuous and whose inverse is also continuous. So in this sense, these two are one and the same topologically. But the interesting thing is that inside the R3, the three-dimensional space, you cannot deform one to the other. This is a topic in the theory of knots, and our friend Professor Jayantan is doing work in that area, as Srija had introduced it. I'm not going to the details, but the point is that if you take two subsets of R3, they may be homeomorphic, but that doesn't mean that there is a homomorphism of R3 which take one subset to the other. So that's a very important problem in knot theory, and these are some of the basic ideas on homomorphism. And this thing is a very important concept in not only topology but in all of mathematics also. And I was trying to give you some of the basic ideas behind that. And actually, these things developed 100 years back through the persistent work of several great mathematicians. And at that time, there was a confusion. Which is the isomorphism in for these topological spaces or surfaces? Actually, several answers were tried first. One answer was what is called diffeomorphism. That is a bijective map which is not only continuous but which is differentiable also with a differentiable inverse. Diffeomorphism. Another concept which was tried was deformation. That is continuous. Can you continuously deform one thing to the other? And another concept, another type of functions which was tried was continuous bijection. There was a confusion whether continuous bijections or homeomorphisms, which are to be taken. And actually, I think it was Kuratowski who showed an example that between two spaces there can be, for example, there are two subsets of the plane. Between them, there are from one to the other. There is a continuous bijection from here to there and from there to here, but they are not homeomorphic because there is no invertible continuous bijection whose inverse is also continuous. And ultimately, by the time the first textbook of topology written by P. Alexandrov and Hope appeared in German, this thing was settled and it was generally accepted that the isomorphism in topology is nothing but bijective bicontinuous. So this is how it arrived historically. And I think with this I can stop. And this is in this last slide. I'm giving my email ID, ptramachandran@gmail.com. My mobile number is 94477915504. My personal website is www.ramachandranpt.in. In this personal website, you can see many of the details about me, as well as some of my activities, including the WhatsApp and Facebook and other groups I am running. Some of my links to some of my videos, and I'm also running a YouTube channel named Ramachandran PT, which contains a lot of videos. One set on set theory, and the other on the history of mathematics in India. I am also active in various types of social media like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, Facebook, etc., and running a lot of groups related to mathematics as well as in some other subjects of interest. So, if you are interested in asking something on my talk, you can ask now, or you can also continue the discussions using these media like that. And I'm welcoming all of you to the various WhatsApp groups I am running. Once again, I am to thank the Department of Mathematics, the old students, and my business scholars who sponsored this program for this conduct of this program, as well as for giving me an opportunity to address you. And let me also thank all of you profusely for your patience here. And I would like to hear some of your comments and doubts and questions, remarks, etc. Immediately after that, I think we can spend about half an hour on that. Okay, let me stop here.
Hello, sir.
Hello, who is that? Ajana, come on.
Sir, you have mentioned that about the v minus e plus f number.
Euler, Nama, come on.
Yes, and you have said that it is the starting of modern topology. Can you explain that, sir? How it is the starting of modern topology?
That was what I was trying to explain. Because for some polyhedron, like regular polyhedra, we tabulated and we observed that this v minus e plus f is equal to 2. I showed that I had shown that as a table. But is it true for all? Is it true for all polyhedron? For example, think of something like this. There is a you take a cube, a cubical solid, but inside that a cubical part is removed. Think of a cubicle, say a cube made out of glass, and in the middle of that, a smaller cube is removed from that. So it is also a polyhedron, but the problem is that the surface of the polyhedron is having two disconnected parts, and each part will contribute 2 to that sum. So the total will not be equal to 2. So the Euler theorem will not be true for that polyhedron. Now we consider the case of a toral polyhedron. That is a polyhedron just like a torus. I think I showed you the picture. For that polyhedron, the number will be equal to 0, not 2. That is V minus E plus F will be equal to 0, not 2. Now you can even think of more complicated types of polyhedron. Say polyhedron with the 2 holes. Think of a double torus like 8. You can just take 2 torus and just attach them together at one point. Then you'll get something like the figure 8. And think of a polyhedron of that shape. That is a polyhedron homomorphic to that. That is having 2 holes. So the Euler formula will not work for it. The Euler formula will work only for those polyhedron having no holes, and which is also connected. The original theory is that I think if you take a polyhedron with the property that any 2 vertices are connected by a path consisting of edges, and if you take any closed curve consisting of straight lines on the surface of that, and if you remove that, the remaining portion will be disconnected. That is a connected convex, something like something similar to a regular polyhedra, or which is homomorphic to the sphere. For such polyhedron which can be embedded on the sphere, for them the Euler number is equal. For others, the number will be different. I think that's all I can say. I think these kind of things will be studied. I think this kind of things will be studied in graph theory also, and also in algebraic topology also. These things are. I think that is sufficient for Arjuna. I'm glad to see you back active in this program all these days.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjuna. Anybody else? If there are no questions, I think we will be forced to.
Sir,
Come on. Sophie Shibu, come on.
Actually, my name is Tammy Shibu, sir.
Oh, no
I
problem.
have a question.
You are from?
I have a question. I am from Pathanamthitta.
Very good. Which college?
Pathanamthitta.
Which college?
Catholic College.
Oh, okay. Come on. Tell me.
Catholic College, sir.
Yes. Come on, tell me.
Sir, due to some network issue, I can't complete your class, but I have a doubt. As I took a seminar on
Okay.
homotopy last sem, and when I heard your class, I think I felt the relation between homotopy and homeomorphism.
Hmm.
Is there any relation between them?
The homotopy is the continuous deformation, which I mentioned somewhere. That is how one space can be continuously deformed into the other, or whether one continuous function can be continuously changed to another function. I think there is actually a very important topic to be discussed in algebraic topology, which is a course next to the course, the general topology course the student learned first. The problem is this. Suppose you are having two topological spaces. The question is whether they are homomorphic or not. Suppose they are homomorphic. How can you prove that? You can prove that they are homomorphic by establishing the existence of a homomorphism between them. That is, you find a function f from x to y, which is 1, 1 and 1, 2, which is continuous. Also show that its inverse is also continuous. So there is a homomorphism. Therefore, we can see that these two spaces are homomorphic. Now, suppose they are not homomorphic. How will you prove that x and y are not homomorphic? So one method is this: you assume that they are homomorphic, then arrive at a contradiction. One method is this: the properties which are preserved by homomorphisms are called topological properties. There are a lot of topological properties like cardinality, compactness, connectedness, Hausdorffness, first countability, second countability, separability, Lindelof. There are a lot of topological properties which you study in a topology course. Suppose you can show that one of your space is having a topological property and the other is not having that, then you can see that there exists no homomorphism between. So this is one way of showing that the two topological spaces are not homomorphic. In algebraic topology, another approach is used. In algebraic topology, to every topological space, we are trying to associate a group, sometimes a homotopy group or a homology group to that, with the property that homomorphic topological spaces will have isomorphic groups. But the corresponding groups are isomorphic does not imply that the topological spaces are homomorphic. There are two examples like homotopy groups as well as homology groups, and even homotopy groups are there are several types of homotopy groups are. Now, this can be used to show that two topological spaces are not homomorphic by showing that the homotopy group of this is equal to this space, and this homotopy group of the other space is like this, and they are not isomorphic. Then you can conclude that the spaces are not homomorphic. But of course, even if the homotopy groups are isomorphic, that doesn't mean that the topological spaces are homomorphic. But the other way we can get, that is, in order to show that spaces are not homomorphic, we can you compute the homotopy groups or homologic groups and show that they are not isomorphic. So this is a method used in algebraic topology, and homotopy is the basic concept behind one such attempt. I'm not going to the details.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Next. Any other question? If somebody want to add to what I had said, that is also welcome. It is there. Sometimes there may be some points I failed to mention, or I failed to mention appropriately. You can fill that. That is, you can add your comments. No problem. Welcome.
Sir?
Come on.
Yes, sir. If you permit me, can I ask one more doubt, sir?
No problem.
Yes, sir, you said that topology is not distinguishing a coffee mug and a donut. So in that case, are there any practical applications for topology in the real life?
In fact, there are several. One important types of application of topology is called digital topology. That is in the processing of digital images. Digital images are very much important in the present life. For example, the image you see on the computer screen or the mobile screen, that is a digital image, two-dimensional digital image consisting of pixels. You also are familiar with the various types of scanning modalities like tomography, PET scan, CT scan, and various other types of scanning technology. In this kind of scanning, a digital image of a part of the body of the patient is generated in the computer, and people are trying to analyze that. Or sometimes, in order to study the geographical pattern or some agricultural pattern of a particular country, satellite images are to be processed. Satellites, digital images are to be processed, and several such digital images are to be processed. And these days, a lot of algorithms are made for doing such digital image processing. And in this kind of things, if you want to prove that a particular algorithm is algorithm works as it is claiming, we need a theoretical framework on which you can prove that. And such theoretical, in order to provide such theoretical frameworks, a topological theory of digital image processing is used, and hence arose the field of digital topology, where the topological ideas are applied in the digital image processing, whether it is two-dimensional or high-dimensional. I think that is one important area of application of topology. Of course, there are many. Actually, topology is applied in various branches of mathematics. Even in the many of the second year papers in mathematics you are going to study, many of them uses topology in one way or other. So topology is a subject which is having a wide range of applications inside mathematics itself. And I think 2 or 3 years back, I think in the work of the Nobel laureate in physics, topology was. So there are a lot of applications to topology. So if there are no questions, I think we can wind up.
So actually, myself, Santosh, student of PTR sir, I have completed a PhD under him. Now working in Government Engineering College, Calicut. Actually, it's a long time that I had met my dear sir. Now, actually, this is an opportunity for me to see him. See how beautifully he introduced the concepts of homeomorphism and else. He started with the concepts of a Sierpinski space, actually a non-meterizable space, and he introduced, through which he introduced the concepts, very good topological concepts like isometry, topological property, rubber sheet geometry, like that. And he also discussed the homeomorphisms of the rail line also. See how beautifully he introduced all these concepts in a systematic way. Actually, it is a really motivation for us to present the concepts like this. Actually, we just introduced some concepts and we'll pass on to some other one. But he actually introduced from the very basics and get into the real topic. So actually, it is a very useful for us and also for the students who are studying MSc. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for having a wonderful talk.